and we're very happy to be here at Tally Mae's farm. So thank you, Tally, for having us. And thank you, Mary, for pinch hitting for our insect workshop. We had our speaker, Frank Hale, who's the entomology specialist, had triple bypass surgery last Tuesday. So on very short notice, Mary has graciously decided that she will lead our insect workshop. So thanks both of you. And we'll start out with a tour of your farm, and then we'll jump into the insect part.
I'll come stand where you are. Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Tally. I've been at this farm, Turnbull Creek Farm. We started about 8 years ago, started this summer. And we've been certified organic. This is our 3rd summer. It'll be easier to talk about how the farm operates as we walk around, but what I mostly focus on is cut flowers and mixed vegetables. Everything that I grow, I sell. I used to sell at farmers markets, but right now, everything I grow, I sell through a business I have called Fresh Harvest, which I work with other local farms, and we sell all our stuff online through the locallygrown.net software. And this farmer that I've been working with, we've been doing it about 5 years now, and we kind of share responsibilities of what we grow, and then every week we send out an email to our customers letting them know what we have. They place their order and we pack and deliver twice a week to Nashville. So right now that pretty much takes up my main focus, and we've stopped doing farmers markets. It's really nice to have things pre-sold and not have to, it's a little nicer quality of life for the farmer. So that's been a good business for me. I also do cut flowers and do special events and some wedding design, that kind of stuff, to supplement the income. And as we walk around, feel free to ask any questions. I'll probably leave some stuff out, but everything that you see, you can see the border of the trees there. That's my property line. So the whole property is 6 acres. I grow on 3 acres. A little bit of it is in perennial cover crop right now, so it's just under 3 acres. It's pretty much just me, and then I have some volunteers that come 2 days a week and help me out. And then my husband also is we call him the infrastructure manager, who helps whenever the tractor breaks down. He's in charge of that. So it's definitely a small farm, and it's definitely full-time, more than full-time. The chickens are not, I'm actually babysitting the chickens right now. My dad, they're the last of the flock that got decimated, so I don't really do chickens, but I'm babysitting them for now. So if we want to walk up, we can walk up to the barn, see the greenhouse and the hoop houses and stuff. The hoop house, just so I don't forget, is from that NRCS grant that they've been doing to organic growers to try to, for soils management and conservation purposes. They've been doing hoop houses. I use it really as an income diversification, but they see it as a conservation practices for soil erosion. And I had to implement some procedures, which I'll talk to you about in the back, about tillage, and I put some stuff in perennial cover crop. And then this fall, they've given me a grant to do a pollinator for native pollinator species, different flowering native shrubs and stuff to increase pollinator habitat. So I'll be doing that this fall as well. Well, so if we can walk up. And I'm so glad it's cooler today.
You're good.
Well, this is the barn, and it came with the property. We didn't build it, but it's pretty much the hub. Everything happens here. And then the greenhouse is a heated double wall poly greenhouse. I start everything with transplants. So in the spring, it's pretty much empty now. It's waiting for me to put the shade cloth on, which is what we do like 2 weeks ago. But and then I'll keep seeding and doing transplants all summer. But right now it's pretty much empty. In the spring though, it's packed, and everything then is moved out into the field. And then everything here is packed, washed. And then there's another shed down there where there's equipment. I have a front end loader and tiller and a manure spreader and a disc down there. And that's my equipment. And then over here in the field, I have a shade house, which also is a little late getting the shade cloth up. Everything's a little behind right now. But there's a shade house, which is just the bows that you'll see. And then the hoop house, which right now I'm experimenting really with what to grow in the summer in the hoop house. My partner, John, he grows most of the tomatoes that we sell through Fresh Harvest. So I have tomatoes in the field, you'll see, but he does the tomatoes under plastic. Right now I'm experimenting with flowers under the plastic, so there's mostly celosias in there and some other heat-loving flowers. We'll see how they do. So we can walk around the field. What you'll see right now is the field is kind of in transition between spring crops, and the summer crops are not ready yet, and the spring crops are kind of on their way out. I had the whole month there where it was really a wet spring, and I'm kind of feeling that now with a little bit of lull in production, which I was worried about. It's not too bad, but my squash and green beans and the summer crops aren't quite ready yet. But you'll see beets and chard and kale and some lettuces coming in, and the melons are finally in the ground, and so it's pretty much full right now, but I'm always in transition. You'll see some beds are empty and are ready to be seeded and ready to have new transplants come in, and some beds are ready to be tilled in. So I'm always in a state of flux. Some of the beds are seeded with buckwheat, which I use as my cover crop during the summer. It pretty much germinates whether things are irrigated, whether it's irrigated or not, which is nice, and it's a nice pollinator attractor, and does some nice organic matter. Doesn't really do nitrogen, but it kind of does a nice quick organic matter boost and rests the bed for a little bit. Hi. So, any questions so far about what I do or anything like that? Okay. This year, just in terms of insect management, I'm trying a couple of new things this year. Last year I had probably my heaviest pest pressure year that I've had. I've kind of been able to float, doing organic. I've never done anything non-organically, and I've just been able to float, kind of coast, I guess, kind of get away with some stuff, do a lot of succession planting, do a lot of just hand picking and monitoring of insects, and I've always kind of been okay, but last year I really noticed I was having a lot of issues and a lot of crop loss with things like Mexican bean beetles and squash bugs, and I think disease transmission with the cucumber beetles. So it was definitely a challenging year. It might have had something to do with the flood and the heat. I just have no idea why. But this year I'm trying some new things. For instance, the squash I have out there as acting as a trap crop. I went ahead and planted it in case it worked, but what I'm using it now is as a trap crop, which means I'm flame weeding it and also pulling up the whole plant. Now that it's covered, it has squash bugs and squash bugs eggs, which you'll see out there. Getting rid of that and getting the squash bug eggs out of there, and then I have another planting. So I'm hoping that that'll kind of diminish the population some, so it won't build up as much as it did last year. And then also on the Mexican bean beetles, I'm trying you might know the Pediobius wasp. Okay, I've been waiting for the larva to hatch on the bean plant, and there's some little tiny larvae out there now. So I have the wasps are coming on Wednesday, and the adult wasps feed on the bean beetle larvae. So I'm hoping that also gets the population down a little bit, because I can handle a little bit of pest pressure. My attitude is very lenient towards bugs in general, as long as it's not really affecting my production to an extent. I don't mind some damage on the plants and things, but you'll see that. But last year it was so bad, I was really losing crops left and right, it felt like. So I guess that's it for my insect management. I do use some insecticidal soap, and I've used Pyganic, I guess is the other thing that I've used. Pyganic is it's an OMRI, it's a certified organic bug spray, but I try not to use things that are flowering, things that will affect pollinators. And we've had bees here for the past few years. We don't have them this year, but so I haven't used stuff that would really affect bees. And so I've sprayed as minimally as possible
The wasps, is that something like you order and they
I did. I
deliver
ordered
them?
it from a company in California that sells beneficial insects, and they ship them in. As they have to have something to feed on, which is why you have to. Your timing of it has to be correct. Because I have to wait. Because as soon as they're released, they want to go out and find something to eat. Otherwise, they could fly away or starve. Or
Yeah.
we'll see if it works. I don't know if you all have any experience with that wasp, but
Yeah, we had the same problem as we did last year with the Mexican bean beetle. For some reason, it was just bad last year, I think, all over.
yeah.
And so I ordered the wasps, and they come as mummies. So it's the larvae of the beetle that has the wasp larvae living inside of it. And so you hang up the little pouches, and then the adult wasp will come out, and they're looking for the bean beetle larvae so they can lay another egg in there and continue that cycle. And for whatever reason, the Pediobius likes to, there's a lot of other parasitoid wasps out there that attack a lot of other pests, but the Pediobius likes to stick around, you know, when it has its host. So it works in this system, I think. But another thing you want to be aware of is when you have the wasps and you're doing hand picking, you don't necessarily want to be hand picking at the same time you're releasing the wasps, because you could be killing the wasps when you're squashing the larvae.
Yeah.
You could do the adults though. You can hand pick
Yes.
adults.
And actually, it gets to a point where I don't do much hand picking anyway, because it's too much hand picking. But
Kelly, what's
do you
this
sew?
contraption back here?
that is my solar dehydrator.
Oh.
So there's the back door opens and there's trays inside for putting sun-dried tomatoes or peppers or the things that I'm working on. And then the black heat, I just take it outside and turn it towards the sun, and the black absorbs the heat and it kind of channels up through the little house there. And I got the plans online. I didn't make it up. It's still sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. The best thing is to take the trays in at night still, and I'm still having some mold issues. I need to get hotter faster.
How do you spell that wasp?
P-E-D-I-O is kind of the shortened for pit of the video wasp. Right, we can walk. Like I said, I do cut flowers too, so some things are just flowers, and it's pretty, the back area is in alfalfa. So what you see on the other side of these beds is a perennial cover. I'm supposed to keep it in a perennial cover crop for 2 years, according to my contract with the NRCS. It has to do with the slope of the land is not good for erosion, and so I'm need to do a different, we're trying to build up the soil on that part. And then in the other, I divide everything up into so I have things divided up kind of into 3 sections here. This is my early spring section. Then that area is melons and then garlic left over from the fall. And then the back is the summer crop. So I try to do a semi-rotation as I go every year, but also I'm constantly rotating through the beds anyway. So my rotations really, don't ask me about my rotation actually, because it's all in my, I can't explain it, and I try to keep it going, but mostly as soon as something's done, I'm tilling it under and replanting it. Basically, it's pretty intensive. I don't know how much you want to walk around, or if you want to, Mary, if you want to kind of start as we go, or if we want do a walkthrough first and then
Yeah, we can
see
do a
what you see.
walkthrough.
You can see, like right now, the white butterflies on the kale, they look so pretty, but I'm starting to get the caterpillar loopers on the kale. They're just really starting. It's been a great spring for pests, and the greens have loved all the cool wet that we've had until the past couple weeks ago. So the kale and the onions and the chard and beets have been doing great, but they're starting to get pests now. The kales are getting the caterpillars, and then on the chard I noticed the first blister beetles today. So both of these greens have a few more weeks, and then I'll be tilling them in and pretty much moving on from greens until fall again. If you have any questions about what anything is, but I try to mix in the flowers with the vegetables just to kind of keep things diverse through the field. We can walk through this.
Is this dill over in the
Yes, yeah. And the dill I use for flowers. I do it as the herb too, but then I also use the flowers in bouquets.
And what's the white and purple?
The white and purple is agrostemma, corn cockle, I think is what it's called. And then there's some verbena on the other side of that, and perennial yarrow. And this is artemisia here. I used to do more perennials than I do now. This area is my Bermuda grass section. This used to be the perennial part of the farm. When I first got here, I planted a lot of perennial flowers and asparagus and had the idea that it was really gonna be an easygoing way to farm and not have to do a lot of transplanting every spring. But I started getting a problem with Bermuda grass, and just it's kind of an ongoing issue. So tillage seems to be the best thing that I can do for it. I've found something called Burnout, which is an organic herbicide, but doesn't work that well in the summer. It seems to work better in the winter in the hoop house. But anyway, the Bermuda grass is an issue in my perennial patch. So I finally have gotten rid of that. And the indigo, Baptisia false indigo, is my remaining perennial. But otherwise, I'm just trying to just keep. You can see it's creeped into the beets there a little bit, and then I have her on the perimeter of the house. But I don't know if the farm, or if you all have Bermuda grass issues, but it's a pretty. It's the reason I know a lot of growers don't go organic, is because of Bermuda grass. Unfortunately, it's.
Burnout is the color gas.
Mm-hmm. In the hoop house right now are all flowers. I had lettuces and some Asian greens and stuff through the winter in here. All did, in terms of temperature wise, they did great. I had issues with aphids and some the sclerotinia fungus, but otherwise it was great in terms of growing temperature wise, just the unheated hoop house.
Can you talk about where you got your hoop house?
I got it from Atlas Greenhouse Supply. It's probably overbuilt, but but other folks have told me I didn't need the trusses and stuff, but I like the truss. It makes me feel secure. I don't want it going anywhere. Is that what you mean? Where? Yeah, just Atlas Greenhouse Supply, and it's a little. It's got half the sides done. We're still working. My husband and I put it up, so we're still hoping to get the other half up, other half roll up side by next winter. And then from here on are melons, watermelons, and cantaloupe, and the garlic's about ready. I found my favorite way to grow the melons now is landscape fabric or some sort of weed suppression in between the rows, and then straw mulch up around the plants instead of the plants in the weed suppression fabric, because it was always blowing around and smothering the plants and stuff, and it was hard to reuse every year and get the holes lined up. So now I do it this way. So I get a little bit of organic matter and the weed suppression. So the only thing, it's a little more labor, and like I'm doing it with the tomatoes too, but I got a ways to go. But as long as I could scrounge around enough hay for all the local farmers, and so we can walk up here is probably the best shortcut to the back. I don't have deer problems. Everything's fenced, which they could jump over if they wanted to, but so far I haven't had any, knock on wood, any problems. Weird. This is sun gold cherry tomatoes. They're just coming in. I do, on Friday evenings, I have some local customers that come and buy, there's open farm hours, and I do pick your own cherry tomatoes and green beans. So that's what these are for. And then, so this is on the other side is the squash that I'm in the process of, I kind of left it here for you guys. Actually, I've been dying to pull it up, but I left it here just in case there'd be no more squash bugs. I really wanted you guys to have some squash bugs. So that's what this, and then there's, it kind of goes flowers, and there's a couple rows of beans, and then the tomatoes. And then on the other side of the tomatoes are more flowers. So you could.
What is the flower in the house that is next to the poppies? It looks like it might be some sort of salvia, but it's got real
Yeah, it is a salvia. Yeah, it's called Marble Arches, the variety, and that's where you grow it, is for the color.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it's kind of past now. I need to pull it up, but
Have you dried it?
I never have. No.
I wonder how it would dry. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it is a very. We should try that. What? Oh, thank you. So as you can see, everything's irrigated, which is a constant dance of switching around the different sections and stuff. The tomatoes down here in the process of being tied up, and I don't know.
Are you pumping water from the creek?
I'm pumping water. I have a well.
Oh.
It's a sulfur well, but it's a really great well. It's even in the drought we had a few years ago. It's been fabulous. So I have 2 hydrants, and the whole back is run off the well.
Is that the creek down there?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the well is. It's probably. It was pretty. The well was already here, so I've been very lucky with that. Any other questions?
Did you seed your basil, or did you transplant your basil?
Transplant. Yeah, the only thing that I direct seed are the beets, and the chard is direct seeded, and zinnias and beans, and corn. Everything else is through transplants. I am going to try to direct seed more of the squash this year and see if that helps. Maybe if it's, I don't know, if it will help with pests.
Do you transplant by hand, or do you use a cooler manufacturer?
No, I transplant by hand. Yeah. Even though have you seen the Japanese paper pot system? Wow, it's on YouTube. You guys could YouTube it. Japanese paper pot system that it's a small pull behind transplanter for doing, and it's made for using these paper pots that are formed in a chain. I guess, that you unfold and you plant into this kind of structure that then unfurls itself and goes down this little channel into this. It's pretty amazing looking, and it's great for things like beets and sunflowers and things that you do about 200 cells at a time. Yeah, so I'm looking into that for next year. Hi. Have you heard about that, Japanese?
I've seen it.
Yeah. So, Mary, I don't know if you want to take on from here in terms of.
Sure.
I could point you out some. I mean, we're at the beans, so we could start there. Or we could go back to the barn if you wanted to get stuff to show.
I have handouts here, and I made 20 of them, so I hope there's enough for everybody. I'm just going to, Daniel, can you help me pass them out? And Alex, too, maybe? I'm going to keep a copy for myself so I can reference it. I want this one. And here's another one. Here's another one, Alex, if you want to help pass this one out too. I'll take these papers.
Thank you.
Okay, so while Daniel and Alex are handing out these handouts, I did want to talk about 2 insects that Frank was going to mention, and you have them on your PowerPoint handout that Heather gave you guys. Does everybody have one of these, the PowerPoint? Was there enough?
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay. So there's 2 new exotics that are becoming more significant in Tennessee. The brown marmorated stink bug and the spotted winged Drosophila, which is not here yet, but last year was found in Kentucky, South Carolina, and North Carolina. So I was going to talk about the brown marmorated stink bug first, and Annette is holding kind of a little ID kit. Here's a unit tray with some of our more common stink bugs compared to the brown marmorated stink bug. So see if you can tell the difference between them. For identification purposes, the brown marmorated stink bug, it'll have alternating white and dark bands along the edge of its abdomen, and it'll have a white band on its antennae, on the 4th segment. So you can look at that, and that's how you can tell the difference between that one and some of the other type of stink bugs.
What besides having a white band on its antennae?
And it'll have alternating white and dark
Okay.
bands along the margin of its abdomen. So you'll be able to see those. And marmorated basically means, it's just a fancy word for mottled or marbled, and you can tell it's got kind of a marbling, grayish brown, white sort of appearance to it. And this insect has a really wide host range. It goes after tree fruits like apples, peaches, pears, plums. It'll go after cucurbits, legumes, tomatoes, a lot of flowers now they're saying it goes after, and it can also develop on some of our ornamental trees like redbuds and maples. So it has a lot to eat, and it can find hosts anywhere, and it's causing a lot of damage, and organic growers really don't have right now any suitable or satisfactory controls, but they're working on it. There's an organic task force for the brown marmorated stink bug.
Are there any natural predators? Where does it come from?
It comes from Asia, and they don't know yet if they've been identified. But it's resistant to a lot of conventional pesticides, so it's a problem not just for organic growers, but for conventional growers too. And
does it outcompete other bugs?
do they outcompete
Other bugs? I mean,
other
it's the same.
of the stink bugs?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but they're significant just because of the wide host range, and then they also have an aggregation pheromone, so you'll find lots of them when there's a few of them, they'll attract all the others. And these are the same guys. Have you guys had experience with them getting into your houses in the fall? Some people have. And so they're considered also an urban nuisance pest, because the Asian lady beetle sort of does that too. So they'll get into your cracks and they're trying to find overwintering sites. So places where they overwinter in your house in protected areas, and then they'll come out in the spring and start mating, laying more eggs. And
Are they confirmed in our area now? 'Cause I
yes.
swear I've seen it in my house.
And there are on this PowerPoint slide here, Frank prepared these slides, but on his third slide you'll see where it's been confirmed in Tennessee. It's probably almost undoubtedly found in more counties than this. So if you know of it in your county, send a bug or send a picture or something to Frank and let him know so he can keep that county list updated. But yeah, we think it's more widely spread than this. And so all stink bugs have piercing, sucking mouth parts. So the damage is they'll pierce. You can see there's a picture of some damaged apple fruit where it inserts its stylet into the fruit and sucks out sap. So you get these really ugly, sunken brown spots that sort of look like rot on the apple. And you get that, at about near the time of harvest. So that's pretty destructive because the apple's been on the tree the tree's been producing the fruit the whole summer, and then just when you're ready to harvest, you find out you have all this unmarketable fruit. And it's been a big problem in that it's caused a lot of economic loss in the Northeast on tree fruits last year. What else about the brown marmorated stink bug? So we can go over, I've included a little information sheet too. This was in the May issue of this year's Growing for Market, and it has some information on it and some of the strategies that organic growers can use. There's using row covers and hoop houses and kind of physically protecting them. And I know with row covers, the issue always is getting pollination. So if you have problem with these guys on, squash or cucurbits, you could try parthenocarpic varieties or varieties that are seedless and don't require bee pollination to set fruit.
The other issue with row covers is heat. It traps
Yeah.
heat under that, so
That's
it kind
true.
of doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, and you'd want to make sure you got the lightest weight possible. So there's different weights of row covers, so you'd want the summer row weight and not the winter weight. Surround is a kaolin clay product. Have you guys ever used this or heard of it at least? And it's good it can help for this guy, this brown marmorated stink bug. You have to apply it often, and you have to get a nice even coverage. Rain will wash it off, so you'll have to reapply. But it also is good for squash bugs and cucumber beetles too in some of these crops.
And one tip I saw for all these bugs is if you are transplanting, if you surround your transplants before you even take them to the field, which is pretty easy because they're small. And the hard thing with the squash is getting underneath the leaves.
Right.
My husband does real good getting the tops, but he's not real good at getting underneath. But if you can surround your transplants before you even mess with them, and then take them out to the field completely white like little ghosties, then sometimes you can fool the bugs before they get there.
That's a good point, because it is important to get on the underside of the leaves, and that's where a lot of the squash bugs are laying their eggs, and that's where you'll find them. And
as the plants get bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
it gets harder.
Right.
But it seems like, in my personal experience, it seems like if you can get them surrounded real good when they're little, and surround the first 2 or 3 times that they grow again, then sometimes the bugs get frustrated, and they're like, well, there's nothing good here, and it clogged me all up the last time I tried to eat that.
right.
So and then the plants are a lot bigger too, and unless they get the virus, they don't croak from getting bitten.
And a lot of the coverage sometimes depends on what kind of backpack sprayer you're using, and it just depends on how much you really want to invest. But we have a gas-powered solo backpack sprayer, and the disadvantage is it feels like you're wearing a lawnmower on your back, and it's really loud, and you have to wear earplugs, and then it's also gas-powered. But the pros are it creates a really nice fine mist. Coverage is really good, and it blows it has power, so it'll blow the squash plant so you can get on the other underside, and you can spray pretty fast. With Surround, one of the things you'll have to pay attention to is getting the powder, because it's a clay. You have to get it agitated and mixed really well, otherwise it'll clog up your sprayer, and that can be a pain.
Is that something that will interfere with beneficials? Like
This Surround?
Yeah, like Safer Soap does. If you spray it the wrong time, you'll get your beneficials.
Yeah, you don't want to get it like, on bees, but you just want to spray always when your bees and your pollinators aren't around. So you'll have to, time it right. So just a couple other notes on the brown marmorated stink bug. So they're working on a pheromone, an aggregation pheromone. They found one. It's similar to what's already available for our native brown stink bug. And now they're just trying to develop a bait and kind of kill stations for them. And there's people working right now on trying to find good recommendations for organic growers. But if you want information on this, there's a great website. You can see it in that last paragraph of this sheet. It's www.bmsb.opm.msu.edu. And that one is maintained and updated by Matt Grisham and Ann Nielsen from Michigan State University. And those are the folks that are really putting a lot of effort into finding solutions for organic growers. But you can go on the website, and there's a grower forum. So if you have problems and if you want to put a question out there, you can comment and see who responds, and if other growers around have good suggestions for you. So I would recommend checking that out if you have a problem with this particular insect. Anything else on brown marmorated?
Our van mentioned on the way up, if you squish them, does the scent, if you're just picking them off by hand, does the scent that's released attract more?
Attract more? I don't know exactly how they have a pheromone, and I don't know when exactly they're releasing it and if it's released in that way. I would just, when I hand pick, what works best for me is just a soapy water and a jar, like a mason jar. Same thing with what you do with Japanese beetles and squash bugs and anything else. And that way you don't have to worry about getting it on your hands either.
What you can do is actually spray your plants, the underneath side, like water. They don't like water. You force them up, and you come back 5-10 minutes later,
And
pick them off.
that's a good idea.
Because they don't like water, they hate water. So you kind of have to direct your jet stream towards the base and get them to climb up.
Get them
that's
to
where
climb
they're
up.
hiding.
Yeah, stink bugs and squash bugs too like to hang out. You'll see them often hanging out at the base of the plant. Is that it on brown marmorated stink bug? Is there anything I'm missing? Have you guys all seen pass around the specimens here? So look for those white markings on the antenna and on the edges of the abdomen. So another exotic insect pest that's going to be a problem for organic growers, especially those growing fruit, is this spotted winged Drosophila, which is a fruit fly. And it was causing a lot of problems in previous years in California and on the West Coast, but now they found it in North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky last year. So chances are it'll be if it's there, it'll be found in Tennessee maybe soon. And this guy is a problem because unlike other fruit flies, it goes after fruit that is still on the tree. So normally when you think of like the Mediterranean fruit fly, they like to go for fruit that's overripe or rotting. Like they're a kitchen pest and they're eating fruit that's a little too sweet or overripe. But this one, the females will find fruit on the tree or on the shrub still. They go after berries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, soft-skinned fruit, apricots, peaches, nectarines, things like that, grapes. So the females will lay an egg inside the fruit, the larvae develop inside the fruit, and then they'll either crawl out to pupate or they'll pupate inside the fruit itself, and then after pupation they'll mate and lay eggs again. So you can get a lot of generations in a year, and their generations, the duration between their life cycle, it speeds up as it gets warmer, so they can have they can go from egg to adult in just a couple weeks if it's warm enough. So there's not, and ways you can monitor for it if you're worried that you might have it on your fruit. They like apple cider vinegar. So if you can hang a cup of apple cider vinegar, they'll go in there and they'll drown themselves. So then you can go and see if you have them. And you know them, the males will have a little spot on their wings. And I don't personally have a lot of experience with this insect pest yet, but if you think you have it, you should contact Frank. He'd be able to give you a positive ID on it if you can capture one in a little vial or something and send it to him. It'll be hard to take a picture of these guys, a good quality one, because they're so small. So I was looking for, and this one's mostly going to be a problem for organic growers because conventional growers tend to have a spray program for their fruit. So the only thing I found that was maybe available or in the works, and it's not on the market yet, but it's registered with the EPA, is a strain of Bovaria bassiana, which is a parasitic or entomopathogenic fungus that'll attack the fruit fly. And they're working on developing a spray program where they'll spray it with active yeast because the fruit flies also are attracted to yeast. So if you spray your fruit or your berries with that yeast and Bovaria mixture, then chances are they'll hopefully will become infected. So that one is maybe on the horizon for development. And we'll see how effective it is. And it's called Balance. And that's a strain of Bovaria bassiana. Other questions? All right. So some of the, I've given you some tables here. I was trying to think of the most common pests that we have to deal with in organic production on vegetables. And so I have what organic growers can do for them. So there's a no spray option and then a recommended organic option. And you'll see right away that on the organic products list, there's not really very many different kinds. You're sort of limited to depending on the insect pests, but our main pesticides are BT, neem, spinosad, pyrethrum, kale and clay, and otherwise you need to be focusing primarily on preventative strategies and cultural controls. And those things are on the no spray options list. So that should be kind of your first, your goal is to use something that's a no spray option and use the spray as a last resort. And if you need to find these sprays, and I know this can be frustrating for some people to source certified organic products, but I have another table that gives you the organic product, the brand name and manufacturer, and there's a lot of different products out there, and I'm not meaning this to be an exhaustive list or a recommendation, but just an example of where you can find some things that organic growers can use. And I try to think of the most common products that people are using. So I'm hoping we can just ask a lot of questions, and if you have specific questions with insects or you want to go out and look for things that Tally has. You said you have some squash bugs, some cucumber beetles, maybe.
Yeah, there's cucumbers at the end of the squash rows. There's some cucumbers as well, so people can feel free to walk through. There's also some Japanese beetles coming out.
Okay. Going after the basil, maybe?
Yeah, on the basil is their main thing, really, that they get in the field. And then the beans are there, and so people should feel free to. There's some other stuff in there too that I don't know what it is, so what they are.
All right, so maybe we can ID some of that. We can talk about, well, from an organic approach, one of the first things they tell people that they need to get down right away is proper soil management, and it's one of the hardest things to get right, and we struggle with it at our organic farm at UT. We have clay soils that are very low in organic matter, so we've been cover cropping and trying to reduce our tillage, but also we don't have animals, so we don't have a source of animal manure, which is kind of a downside for us, but we'll have access to compost that's made on campus hopefully soon, so we'll be able to correct our fertility problems that way. But soil fertility is really important from both a plant health and insect and disease standpoint. The healthier your soils are going to be, your plants are going to be able to, when you put them in the ground, just take off and go and not sit there and wait for conditions that are right. So you want healthy plants that are growing vigorously, and they'll be able to better withstand insect and disease pressure, but also you'll get them maturing earlier. And with some of these pests, like take for example, like the cabbage worms or harlequin bugs. Do I have harlequin bugs on this list? Maybe I left them out. But we've found the past few years of growing broccoli, and harlequin bugs really love broccoli, but they tend to come out a little later after the broccoli's been in the ground. They're not there in the spring, but you'll start to see them first or second week in June, and by that time, those conditions, it's getting warmer, and the broccoli, it's not great conditions for broccoli anyway, so ideally your broccoli would be nearly ready to harvest and just get out of the ground. So timing is a big thing, planting things earlier, using early maturing varieties that come out before your pests are out. With the imported cabbage worms, you guys remember, we started to see them, when was it? Right after you were done with classes, right?
Yeah.
But they weren't out there on our greens earlier. Like in March, we had no pests, except for, say, flea beetles, which we always have. And with flea beetles, really the best thing that I can think of is row covers. Pyganic too. On eggplant, they're a problem because eggplant needs to be pollinated, but if you can cover them until they start flowering, at least that keeps the bugs off for a while, and then you can remove the covers, and then the plant can tolerate some damage, but if they really get excessive, then you could spray with Pyganic.
So does flea beetle damage look like a bunch of tiny little itty bitty pinpoint holes?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, I've got flea
And
beetles.
flea beetles are the shiny little black beetles that they're called flea beetles because if you get close up to them and see one, they have a jumping leg like a flea, and they're
And they do
small.
jump when,
Yeah.
when you put your hand on the plant.
So they're hard to, you can't hand pick them. They're hard to catch. Also, and flea beetles don't have a lot of predators either. The spiders are probably the best ones because they can get snagged in the webs. But other than that, nothing can really get them because they're so fast.
Don't you use something in the little bag? Did you have little bags of something in your seedlings for the flea beetles?
Little bags.
Yeah, little white
Oh, the
envelopes
bags
filled.
with the white envelopes with the orange bugs.
Oh yeah, those were for our thrips and whiteflies. Yeah, that was Thripex. And Tally, do you have problems up with pests in the greenhouse pests on your transplants? Not so much.
This year I had, oh gosh, besides aphids, the little fungus gnats. Yeah, I had a problem with fungus gnats, and especially it seemed like the larvae eating the roots of the transplants is what the issue was. Which I found, which they said to put potato slices on the soil of the transplants, and the larvae will come up. That's how I identified.
They like to go in there. And
Yes.
then you can remove.
Yes, and I don't know if it's a good, like, I know it helps you
good
to
monitoring
yes,
tool.
to know that you have them.
And then you could, for fungus gnats, they sell parasitic nematodes that you could buy.
Which I
And
guess you put in the potting mix.
You can put it,
Or do you spray it, water it on?
yeah, you put it in your water can and you mix it up with water and then water your plants with it.
Yeah, somebody that uses vermiculite and they just put a thin layer over the top and that scratches up the larvae from the fungus gnats.
Yeah,
I've
that
never
could work.
tried it,
That
but
would be interesting to try. I could see that work, or diatomaceous earth or something for that matter, then over the surface might work then. But yeah, back to your comment, those sachets that we were hanging on our plants, because we have a problem with thrips in the greenhouse, and so that was Thripex, and I got that from Copert, and what that is, it's predatory mites.
Do you know what's in spinosad?
Spinosad is it's a fairly new microbial product. So it's based on a soil bacterium that's not harmful to mammals, and it's specific to caterpillars and bean leaf beetle larvae. So it'll be effective against Colorado potato beetle and let me think of another one. Oh, like Mexican bean beetle, asparagus beetle larvae, but not so much the adults. And that's another kind of a good rule of thumb with a lot of these pesticides is at the adult stage they're a little less vulnerable, so you want to get them think of the like exoskeleton of a Colorado potato beetle, for example. It's not as vulnerable to pesticide sprays as like the soft young larvae. So you'll want to time your spraying to get the larvae.
It works.
Yeah. Spinosad?
Yeah, because like we've been using BT and Bonite, you used to make BT, stop making BT now, and it's now replacing with spinosad, but you couldn't figure out what is it actually. That was why I asked the question.
Right. And what are you using it for? Caterpillars? Or?
It's for potato beetle.
Potato beetle.
Yeah, and they just dehydrate the larvae. It works well on the larvae. The adults, you just squish them. That's the only thing that works.
Right, right. So hopefully you'll find some of these things on this list helpful. Or maybe if you have a comment on a practice that you've used that you've found successful, or something that you're having trouble with, and we can all as a group help out. Maybe not. Well, let's just walk. Let's look for some bugs. And maybe.
You couldn't remove them.
But at least,
What happens when you just remove them?
yeah, or you can just, even getting them off the leaf, yeah, getting them off the leaf is, even if they fall to the, at least they're not right on the leaf, and they're more vulnerable to, predation by tiger beetles and other little guys that are beneficial that live in the soil.
And everybody has to take some off before they leave.
Yes.
So Terry has a lot of crickets here. How bad are they?
The crickets?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not
Kelly,
really.
have you noticed problems with crickets?
No, I mean I have a lot of them, especially in the
Right.
house with the straw. But I've never had any issue with crickets. Grasshoppers eating seedlings in the greenhouse is another issue, but I haven't noticed.
Yeah. Crickets and grasshoppers are one of those where I never think about even trying to manage. They're just certainly not crickets.
Just arrived.
Yeah, and a lot of it actually is their poop. They as they're chewing, they just kind of make things really like
messy.
completely. Yeah.
Right.
No, this is another one of the good guys, right?
Yeah, that is another one.
Yeah, I've never seen them on the
So we had problems with them one year, and then the next year we didn't have any. And then so it seems like blister beetles are kind of a. It depends really on the year, kind of a pest. Yeah. But and it's the same thing where it's kind of, and they'll eat a lot of different things. They'll eat. We had them on eggplant, was really bad one year on eggplant. And the only thing I can really say is plant a lot of different things. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, and then keep monitoring, trying preventative strategies, rotating, and then tolerance. Also, if you were having a really big problem, Hyganic is about the only thing that would work for them. And I don't like to suggest Hyganic too often. That's the native lady beetle, the 13 spotted pink lady beetle. Because for a few reasons, the Pyganic is a pyrethrum and it's broad spectrum, so it'll kill all your lady beetles, it'll kill your pollinators, and it can throw things off balance. Also, it's super expensive, and if growers can share it, that would be a good thing, because you can get it by the gallon. Also, with pesticide sprays, I hate spraying. I don't want to suit up. I don't want to wear personal protective equipment. I don't want to calibrate sprayers or measure things out. And then you have to be careful with how you're mixing things, because Pyganic, you have to read the label. And it's based, the label is law. And then you have, all the labels have different rates, and Pyganic has their label. I hate it because it's on a per acre basis. So what organic grower is going to spray an entire acre of stuff all at the same time? So we usually spot spray, like we'll do it on a row basis. So you have to calculate how much that spray is. And last week we had, or a few weeks ago, we had some of our workers spray, and it was a wrong calculation, and we had major phytotoxicity on tomato plants. So those are a few reasons why I don't like to spray.
Here's some eggs.
So this is a soldier beetle.
Yes.
Are those the little bitty beetle eggs?
And that's also a beneficial. Yeah, they're good.
So who do the soldier beetles eat?
They'll eat a few different things. They'll eat aphids and thribs and things. They're kind of generalists.
Are those the bean
So
beetle
here's
eggs?
bean beetle
Yeah.
eggs, which look just like your lady beetle eggs, but then here's your bean beetle larvae. And that's like maybe a first or second instar.
Yeah, let him
They
go.
also eat pollen. The soldier beetles will eat, and sometimes incidentally pollinate.
Do these larvae pupate in the soil? Or
The soldier beetles?
no? Yes,
This
in
or
the-
this one? No, they pupate right on the
right in
leaves.
the-
Are there any specific plants that you can plant to attract beneficial insects for specific pests?
Yeah. So it depends on the pest, but so for something like the Mexican bean beetle, you would have lady beetles would eat them. If you've ever seen a lady beetle egg cluster, for example, hatch, you'll see that they're kind of cannibalistic, so they'll eat the other eggs of each other, which is kind of too bad. But they'll eat eggs of these guys. They'll eat eggs of the larvae. And the smaller, the more vulnerable the eggs are. So if you plant, like say that there was that native lady beetle that was around, they like buckwheat. They like small flower. Think small flowers like
Cilantro,
thyme,
dill.
cilantro, dill, verbena, alyssum.
Baby's breath, maybe.
Huh?
Baby's breath, maybe.
Yeah.
And what
Queen
you-
Anne's lace.
Yeah.
Small, like carrot families flowers or
anything that has those
Yeah.
little bitty multiple flowers.
and the wasps will like those too. The parasitoid wasps that, boy, if we find one, would be lucky. But because they're so small, and we should look for a hornworm.
If you look on the buckwheat,
Check out
you'll
the tomatoes.
generally see some sort of beneficial on it
Yeah.
if you look around that plant.
And you might even see some beneficial wasps.
Tally, can you talk about the beneficial habitat that you're going to plant? Do you know what species you're going to plant?
It's a shrub. It's shrubs, native shrubs. That they give you a list to choose from. So it's things like sumac and native cherries and there's sweet spire and there's a list of, and I have to do it around the entire perimeter.
Really?
And they're all all native flowering shrubs. Yeah.
Here's another fun beneficial.
They research They do it as a part of their house.
Yeah. So they're kind of like, they have so it sits in weight like a mantis. And
Yep, speak up for the camera.
grabs.
Oh, they get larger than that?
Whisper quietly. It's a secret.
That's as big
Trying
as
to
it
ambush
gets?
you.
Have you noticed that one
There's a lot of different predatory bugs. There's
they like one better than
Okay, maybe that's what. Does it have that same back shape?
similar, but
Yeah, I know it bigger. Just
it doesn't have the same kind of colorations or the same arms.
Yeah, I was gonna
sorry, no one else can see.
And I found that one on this. What is that, Parsel or something?
Queen
Or
Anne's
is
Lace?
that Queen Anne's Lace? Yeah, I found it.
except for probably.
What did you say?
Assassins. So,
I've never seen them cherries.
Ooh, here's a worm.
I don't want a worm. Cutworm?
I don't know. It looks like a two-striped army worm.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, army worms.
And those will eat pretty much anything too, right?
Oh, lots. Yeah, they will.
It's a,
But these guys have a lot of.
Is that the blister beetle?
There's a lot of things that would want to eat this too. Birds like assassin bugs that eat them. Tiger beetles. Army worms.
They're one of these ones.
Well, probably.
yeah.
Yeah. Have you fished with one?
Yeah.
No.
Did you hear quite a lot of velvet ants? How beneficial are they?
How
Vel-
beneficial
velvet
are what?
Velvet ants?
Velvet ants?
Yeah.
The big ones?
Yeah, big ones, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Ours.
Are they beneficial? Yeah. I'm kind of scared of them because when they bite, they really
Exactly.
hurt you.
Yeah, yeah.
They are very cool looking, but they're pet predators.
How aggressive are fire ants towards all these pests?
So they,
I have a fire ant mound in the middle of the yard. And
so they are actually.
no,
They're predators.
we've got them out
Yeah.
at the organic farm though.
I
Yeah.
don't know how.
You can take your pests.
How good
we
they
take,
are?
Like,
I guess
hornworms
it
and throw
depends
'em
on
in the, fire ant
how
hills.
many you have and how
many
worried,
eggs can you
They
lay?
die pretty
right,
quick.
and how worried you are about getting bit by one. Fire ants?
Yeah,
They're
I would
like
never consider them beneficial.
You consider,
Spiders beneficial.
yeah, even black widows.
Yeah, but
if
they
you
don't.
can't get rid of the fire ants because there's nothing organic that'll get rid of them. Can
And
you
they-
at least look?
There's also
I
yellow
mean, can you
striped.
consider them beneficial in that case? That at least they're
Fire ants?
yeah.
I would never consider them.
So you can't pour gasoline on a fire ant hill.
I would not recommend that. You can use Spinoza. There's bait stations. He married. Okay. What is this? What's this?
You never know. It looks gonna be in somebody's hand.
Oh!
Nope, here you go.
Wow.
Was it a flea beetle?
I can't do it twice. That was a what?
That was a flea beetle. Another. There's so many. There's a lot of different species.
You hear about this is like when Bush was filling off his Tom DeLay with like having him in Jordan leader.
Well, there's tons of different
Like
looks to them.
snatched a fly out of midair.
Yeah.
It's like okay, like
But the
everybody's getting
cucumber
struck by
beetles
this
fly.
fly.
They
You
don't
buy 'em, it's like,
Now, Mary, can you talk a
What
little
is
bit
it?
about
No,
cucumber
Tom
beetles? Which
DeLay.
ones you see first?
Yeah. So usually I'll see for cucumber beetles. What I've seen is I'll see the spotted ones come out first, and then the stripes sort of come out. But often you'll see them at the same time.
They're cucumbers are just right over there. And again, I'm using them kind of as a trap seed crop.
For the cucumber beetles, we always, I mean, yeah, we always have problems with them.
So I didn't even get a.
Are faster.
So and this.
What is this? This is real pretty.
Going to do this a bit later.
That's the only thing that I've found that we can do is we just keep successionally planting and then pulling up as soon as we see symptoms, getting roguing out plants, getting rid of them, because the longer you leave the plants, if they have that bacterial wilt, it's just a source of infection. but that's the only I haven't found. I mean, you could try Pyganic, but you have to contact them in order for it to be effective. And it doesn't have a residual, and you don't want to keep spraying just this one thing, so I never spray them at all. Surround helps. The row covers, if you have the varieties that don't need to get pollinated. I haven't ever tried growing Parthenocarpic squash or cucumber. Has anyone?
I have a girlfriend who's trying it this year for the first time.
There's a cucumber, I guess, called Parthenon, which it's just like a seedless type that doesn't need to be pollinated.
Yeah, I think that's what she got. She said it was incredibly expensive.
The seed.
Yeah.
And then you just keep it covered. Then you keep it covered with that cover. But then, yeah, it gets hot. And then how do you do that? Because you're trellising your cucumbers. You have to get a really wide cover.
Yeah, you gotta get a monster.
Or a hoop, a big hoop or something.
Oh, here's some of the little crusty eggs. Those little brown crusty eggs that are squash beetles.
Wow. What are these right here?
It's Ami, like a false white dill. AMMI is the flower. And then this is also an Ami variety that's green.
And is this for your cut flower?
Yes.
But the good guys like it too.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Good guys.
what's special about this Rebecca? What's pretty special? It's gigantic? Is it gigantic?
It's an annual Rebecca.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a cut flower variety. It's called Indian Summer, and so
It looks like it's going to be
it's not one of the
pretty
perennial ones. I guess triloba is the perennial. This is just an annual.
And you have these for bouquets.
Aren't they pretty? Ami. A-M-M. And false white dill is what it's called. It's not a very attractive name, but
It looks good.
I don't know if it has bishop's weed. Maybe is what it's. Oh, what is this?
What about these?
Oh, is that the striped? Is that another?
Was it another
form of
striped
cucumber?
Yeah.
beetle?
Might have been a soldier beetle. Yeah, lots of soldier
Yeah, there. I did see a soldier.
This one's a flea beetle. It's just a big
That's
one.
right. Okay. It's the striped flea beetle. But it doesn't seem to do the same. Does it do the same kind of damage as the smaller flea beetles?
Yeah, it's just it'll make the holes will be a bit bigger. Here's another one. They seem to be liking this pigweed.
That's why I've left so much of it in here.
Good strategy.
But honestly, a lot of the amaranths and stuff, they really do like the Japanese beetles too.
I can catch this guy, but this one's a problem too.
actually. Whoa, buckwheat.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried?
If you go like,
I never have harvested it. But we could try. Maybe a cart.
It's a nice one.
another blister beetle. There's also a little lag in front, but I can't catch one.
Mary, do you know much about like soil insects, like nematodes and
The parasitic,
yeah, the stuff
or the
that-
plant pathogenic nematodes?
Yeah, I'd heard of like, what is it if you space an onion in between something else? That there's some sort of bug that radish that it'll break up the feeding
For
because
like the cyst nematodes or the root knot nematodes?
I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I'm not as good with nematodes as other insects. Yeah. I like things I can see. Where are the cucumbers?
They're right here. They're in this row.
It's a soldier
Oh, the ones that, okay, yeah.
They'll eat pollen and they'll eat other insects, so they're not considered a pest. They're
young squash beetle.
These were, this, I was kind of doing it as a trap crop, and it's Suyo Long, which is a Asian forest.
Is it a variety that's supposed to be resistant or not?
It's just leftover seed. Because I wasn't
Okay.
thinking really that it would be
Because you were just doing trap crops.
something that I would, but it's a nice cucumber. I do like it, but I didn't.
Yeah. I think that's
I just, and that's, yeah, here's this right. Cucumber beetle.
What, how is this parsley?
This is cutting celery.
What's,
It's a cutting. Yeah, it's not, it won't
Striped cucumber beetle.
get to be the celery vegetable.
And so the other one is the spotted, and they're yellow and with spots. They both cause the same type of damage where they'll
Yeah, you can pick a
chew
little
leaves, but they vector that they'll both vector that bacteria wilt.
similar to
The difference between the species is that the striped beetles are also known as the southern corn rootworm, and so they'll lay their eggs on corn roots and develop on there. And then the other species, yeah.
That is beautiful.
Unless I'm mistaken, then it's the other way around. And then the spotted will lay their eggs on the roots of the cucurbits. And so they'll both chew cucurbits, and they're really attracted to flowers. So they'll you usually find them in the flowers. But for the management is basically the same, and it's difficult too for organic growers. But it's a lot of successions, planting things in successions, and then surround, basically. And then roguing out, if you see plants that look
there's
like
one
they're
up here
infected,
that's got the virus
then just,
right there.
yeah, then this one, the wilt.
I didn't, yeah.
Yeah, and here's a squash bug too. But these are the ones you want to get out. And then you don't really want to, well, you know, I wouldn't compost it. I would just get rid of it.
Yeah.
On there wasn't-
Does the bacterial wilt live in the soil too?
It actually is vectored through the feces of the beetle.
Yeah, that's what I
So they don't really know. I think what they think is that there's some reports that it'll live on weeds and alternate hosts, like on the edges of the fields, and that each year it'll just get reintroduced by the beetles. Because when they chew, they create a bacteria. In order to infect it, needs an opening. So when they chew, they make a hole, and then their feces, the bacteria in their feces, and then they can enter through the wounds. So the more beetles you have, the more chances they're gonna
all get the wilt, right?
right be able to spread the wilt, because you'll have more beetles, more wounds, more poop.
Yeah.
And
But that's why they don't get it the second that you see the beetles. That explains a lot, because I'm
right,
like,
they
how
come.
come
It
not
comes
every
later
plant
on.
gets it, and how come they tend to get it a little bit later?
Right.
What's the story on that?
Let's go.
Was it just a brown?
Yeah, brown and kind of small. I already took the box back.
I mean, same color as the beard.
Did it have spiky shoulders?
It had pointy shoulders.
It could be the spine soldier. Or bug, I mean.
Should have brought some jars. I think Frank was wanting to collect a bunch of them.
A bunch of the.
I think the cabbage. Cabbage nipples.
Oh, cool.
I got burned by
They're everywhere.
A velvet ant last year. I don't think.
Oh.
Honey. I was like poking it. Well, I was holding it and poking it. It was not its fault. It was my fault. I was like, ah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that earlier.
No, guys, see?
That's good.
And
And it was like,
Oh, what is that?
yeah. They're called cowkillers. That's awesome.
It's like, it's a hummingbird moth?
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds good to me.
Sure does look like a hummingbird.
It does look
Yeah.
like
It's got a mouth like a butterfly,
Yeah,
but
those
it's
that scream.
kind of like a bumblebee.
It's crazy.
Well, they're the ones that if you pester them, they'll go. So I've seen them if they're like running on the ground and you like rock it back and
So what you see flying around, these butterflies, are the imported cabbage worm. And you, like I mentioned before, we usually have a bigger problem with them a little later on as it warms up. And so they'll mate and they're laying eggs on cabbage family crops. They like kale, brassicas, so kale, chard, or not chard so much, but collards, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, those type things. And then the eggs will hatch and the larvae will start chewing. And these are the guys that get kind of big and they're a little fuzzy. So they're different than the cabbage loopers. It's a different. They're green? Yeah, they're green. And we'll see if we can find some. So, if you help me look for some.
Are cabbage loopers white?
Cabbage loopers are also green, but they're smaller and they loop. So when they walk, they'll do the inchworm. And then here's an egg. Here's a egg. And so this is their damage. Look at how they're defoliating and they're chewing leaves. And you might find
Some are different chewing styles for different.
yeah, well, like this
big chunks
much
in the
is going to be caused by a big caterpillar. So likely that's the imported cabbage worm. So you'll have smaller ones, and these could be young imported cabbage worm, or they could be loopers or even diamondback moths. So there's three major pests of cabbage, caterpillar pests of cabbage that we have.
Like larger, maybe like a grain of rice within eggs, and they'll be like in a little
Yes,
cluster almost.
that's a
baby.
diamondback moth pupa.
Oh, okay.
And those are bad. And have you ever seen one black that turned black?
No.
What is this?
If they're black, they're parasitized, and those you want to keep. This is a flea beetle.
Oh, okay.
Parasitized by the wasp.
By a little braconid wasp will come and parasitize them. So we'll see anyone finding. Here's a bunch of eggs. If you guys want to see what the eggs look like.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So those are the butterflies are laying those.
Oh no.
Mary?
Yes.
I don't know who he is.
Okay, so here's the chrysalis
Somebody.
of the imported cabbage worm. So the adults are flying around, those are the white butterflies. So the caterpillar's already done eating all it's going to eat, and now it's pupating and it'll turn into a butterfly in a few
Is it
days.
imported from Asia or Europe? You know?
Asia, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So are these
Everything
white
bad
butterflies
comes
that are
from
the
Asia.
cabbage
You can see its wings.
which are also the
Coming
ones that are
through.
pollinating the flowers over there?
I think so.
The spot on their wings? Yeah.
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 And how fast, if they pupate and turn into butterflies again, how fast do you have your second generation?
Almost right away, because the butterflies, as soon as they emerge,
They
they
look
go
for
over
a place,
here and they feed on nectar.
and then they come right back
And then
lay an egg.
they have energy for laying eggs, and so they mate, and then they'll lay eggs like within a day.
Wow.
So super fast. And then you'll get the eggs will hatch in about 5 days, and then you have the caterpillars. And I'm not exactly sure how long the caterpillars go through their stage, but I'm thinking probably
2 weeks or something, and then
And then there you go again.
right.
These are pretty much. Then you know it's organic, right?
Well, right. That's what you tell people. Yeah. You say,
I just shared a little.
A little hole, it doesn't matter, right?
and you know a little bit. Some of the data is showing that a little bit of predation increases the antioxidants of the plants.
Oh, okay.
So you,
Right.
Hey, that's cool.
so you can, you know, maybe they're a little healthier. At least you know they live organically. It's weird that we're not finding any caterpillars.
Well, maybe I really actually squished them all.
There's a lot of eggs, so maybe you're in between generations right now.
Here's another pupa.
Yeah, so this one's the diamondback moth pupa. And this one I think might be parasitized because look, see how dark colored it is? There's a common wasp that will parasitize the pupa.
Does it spin your cocoon here?
Yeah, so that's
Cocoon,
its,
yeah.
When did you plant
that's
this?
the cocoon or the.
I think there was a dry little couple weeks in February that this went in. I think. Is what I remember. Early March.
It seems really slow to fall.
The imported cavitorm is the same exact color
It's had a great
as
spring.
Yeah.
like a broccoli leaf. So on broccoli, the best way to know that it's there sometimes is you'll see the frass or the poop, the pellets. And then you know the caterpillar's on there somewhere.
And you have to put it
And
in
you can-
cold, salty
right.
water and flush that little sucker out. Smushy. Otherwise, you have to eat him as extra protein when you cook your
And I'm
broccoli.
seeing, oh, those are flea beetles.
I saw a
thought I
Japanese
saw
beetle too. So there, some of these holes might be Japanese
Might
beetle.
be Japanese beetle.
But I can't imagine that Japanese beetles like kale very well. Doesn't seem like it's in the rose or raspberry or basil family. That must be a hungry Japanese beetle.
Discourage insect feeding, right?
That what?
Discourage insect feeding,
Well, that's what,
except for the ones that are specialized for.
except for the ones that, and then they use it as a stimulant.
Well, it's a defense compound,
Right.
so whenever it's too hot or if it's fed on it or whatever, it just kicks up the glucosinolate content, and that's actually what makes it more bitter as well. If you've got
Making
a bug-free, cool spring,
Right.
it's the sweetest stuff on the planet.
But the glucosinolates are also good for you, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's also what makes the
Makes
plant,
it
so
bitter
it's a balance
and
between
spicy.
the bitterness and the good for you-ness.
I kind of like the bitterness.
No, I'm interning at a farm in Sweetwater. I'm not sure. I know I'm working with her, so.
Put it together.
Yeah.
What farm are you living?
Purring Dog Farm. It's in Sweetwater, Tennessee.
Is it larger than this one?
So, do you guys have any other questions? Are there pests we haven't gone through? We still have.
Or less.
Should we take a break or something, and then? What time are we? What are we
Do you
at?
work within the whole summer?
New questions?
I'm not.
We didn't go over any
I'll be here till mid-August.
basic
Pretty.
Yeah.
kind of entomology, looking at damage and the
So I-
bugs versus beetles and chewing insect pests. We can
Yes.
go over that too.
Be good. Let's take a little break.
Take a break.
Yeah. So not too far away. Yeah.
And I'm working on making that list more specific as to what brand we have, whether or not it's OMRI certified or if it's, you know, being used for organic production. And I know, some of the responses I've got is that the co-op hasn't been very helpful, but that's what we're working on is to make it a better, more friendly place for organic producers as well. So I'll hand my card out, and it's got my, I move around a lot in the office, so I don't have a phone where I'm at, but it has my email on it. So if you have any suggestions or products that you've had trouble finding, or just if you can send me a list of what you do use, so I can get with them and see what we can get. So. Do any of y'all shop at the co-op currently, or get any of your products from there? What county?
Hawkins.
Are they pretty helpful? Or are you? Depends on what day it is.
No. I mean, Brian Julian is actually fairly interested, but he is very concerned that he doesn't have a customer base. And my contention is that whether he has a customer base this second or not, if he would carry these products and make sure that they are readily available and remind people that he carries them, he will develop his customer base. I mean, I know we're primarily tobacco, cattle, and hay, but
yeah, I think that's why one of the things that just like I grew up on a farm and like we had a garden growing up and everything, and I've seen the conventional side and now I'm looking into the organic side, so I'm getting both sides of it, but it's just, you know, you have to be open-minded, and that's what I'm working towards, is to help that more.
He brought in Nature Safe a couple years ago,
yes.
One of the organic fertilizers.
Yes.
And I bought some just to support him. I didn't really need it at that particular time. Well, we needed it again. That was 2 years ago. And the guys at the desk were kind enough to go digging through the warehouse. And they apologized that the bags were so dirty. But Brian displayed it 2 years ago, and he put it back in the warehouse and has never hauled it back out again. And it should have been, I mean, even if he only hauled one bag out, he should have put one bag out somewhere and said, don't forget, we do have organic fertilizer available.
Yes.
We actually stock it.
Yeah, and they still do carry Nature Safe. The co-op has it and can get it in 50-pound bags or in 1-ton quantities. So there's several products that we carry that it's not known that it could be used in organic production. Yeah. So
and the other thing that I think would be really helpful for organic producers as far as the shipping costs go is if the co-op could start kind of keeping a list of organic cover crops that they could get a hold of, because that'll kill you. You know, if clover already costs $110 a bag or something like that, and then you also have to pay $50 or $70 to ship it from Maine.
It's just crazy. Well, here, you take one of my cards and you send me some of this, and I'll get it. Okay. Would anybody else like one, or?
I would like one.
So, any questions you have or anybody has, just feel free to email me, and I'll try to do my best to help put my input in on trying to get products at the co-op, because we want to be your hometown store, like it says, and help y'all out. So. But that's all I have, so thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. About books and guides and helpful.
That the web link sheet?
Yeah. The one from that we used to last year?
Yeah, and I checked all those links and they're still good.
Did you give them?
Yeah,
have it?
Okay. So this is a selected list of references for insect ID and guides that we think are useful. So the ATRA site, you guys are familiar, most of you are familiar with it, I think. They always have great information on organic, for organic growers. And Bug Guide is kind of an interesting group, and that website is run by amateur entomologists that are enthusiasts at taking really great photos of insects. And you shouldn't be dissuaded that they're amateur entomologists, because if they find something that they don't know, they'll get, you know, someone real professional to identify it for them. And there's tons of great photos on there. And that's a helpful site, because there's a lot of stuff online. You'll see, if you're looking for an insect picture, like I was looking for a good picture of brown marmorated stink bug, and I went online and I see so much that's mis-ID'd, mislabeled, so you can't trust everything you see. But this one is a trustworthy site. Cornell University also has some good resources for organic insect and disease management. Mainly, what I want you to, I guess, take away is that for organics, we have to kind of worry about things before they happen, so prevention is kind of the key, and that really, it's soil fertility, maintaining healthy soils. Also diversity. If you're growing a lot of different things like Tally is, she's not going to lose everything. She's going to have a
a really great year for basil and maybe a bad year for something else, and then next year will be completely different because bug population cycle, they are cyclic, a lot of them are, and then you have the same bugs that come out every year, like the cabbage worms and the cucumber beetles and the squash bugs we always have, but things like blister beetles, Mexican bean beetles, and some of these others seem to be worse in some years and not others. And then planting the beneficial cover crops and beneficial flowers. We saw a lot of good insects today too, not just pests. I think we found maybe even just as many good insects, insect species than pests. Garden Insects of North America by Whitney Cranshaw. He's an extension entomologist out of Colorado, and he's written a really beautiful book with lots of great pictures of insects that I use a lot as a guide. Manage insects on your farm. Annette has a few copies of these. I don't know.
I have 12 of them.
So we can arm wrestle or
We might
something.
have to people other than interns first.
Yeah. Interns probably already have a copy of that. Do you guys have a copy of that? I don't.
Sorry, interns. I mean UT interns. If you're
UT interns, yeah. If you're working for us, then you can borrow my copy. That book it's really great at looking at pest management from a systems approach, because everything is kind of interconnected. You can't just solve an insect problem, I mean, without, you have to look at things from a systems approach and look at your soil fertility and health and other influences like intercropping, choosing varieties, crop rotation strategies. It's all, they go over all of that. The Natural Enemies Handbook. This one's from California. And this one's really good if you want, it's got a lot of good pictures of natural enemies, like a lot of wasps and different, they go over different species and what they attack and where you can, or what their life cycles are like, and different ways to conserve and promote beneficial insects. And then we have some other things online on our website. I don't know.
We order a lot of beneficial insects to introduce into our hoop houses because they grow all year, and it's bug logical.
Right.
And they're out of Arizona, and they're like the most economical.
Bug logical?
Bug logical, yeah.
I've never heard of them. I'm going to have to go on there.
Yeah, the only thing I've tried from them have been the ladybugs and then the lacewing eggs.
And what are you using them for, aphids?
Mostly aphids.
In your hoop houses in winter time? Or all year?
But we introduce them in the spring whenever it starts to warm up, and we'll do it in the fall whenever we put in all of our fall crops, like once it cools down, because otherwise the ladybugs just fly away because it's so hot in there. But the lacewings, we do them later in spring when it's warmer, and then praying managers, we do those as well, just kind of for fun, but they seem to have an impact too. So.
Bug logical, I'm going to have to check that one. Other ones were Copert and Rincon Vitova, although I've heard that Copert is a little high, on the high end of price.
For me, it's hard to navigate. Like, they don't have really good product descriptions, and they are high, and I think I signed up, but like to get an account, you have to go into a different page, like to be able to order online from them. So
that's good to know. And you brought up another good point, is you're using the beneficials in a hoop house or an enclosed environment, and I've found that that's the only, I think it's kind of, personally, it's sort of a waste of money to apply, except in the case of Pediobius, which likes to stick around, but to apply beneficials out in the field, because it's likely that they're just going to fly away or disperse and do other things. So I think that your best bet is, in the greenhouse and hoop houses, augmenting is a good way to go. But in the field, you'll just want to conserve and promote and attract.
we have what, just in our experience, like by putting them into the hoop houses, which, you know, some of them do escape, they're just passive solar, so the, you know, sides are down, and they're just like tallies. But by introducing them in there and letting the numbers build, we're getting a huge, like, now it's out in our fields. We see ladybugs all over the potato plants, and I mean,
The lacewings are outside.
Yeah, the lacewings are outside on the tomatoes.
And
so.
do you guys plant or provide insectary plants inside the tunnels too? Or has any?
Not on purpose, but the weeds do a really good job of like being a little hiding place. And like for the ladybugs, they, you know, burrow down in the lettuce plants to get protection when it's really, really cold. So it, not on purpose, but like we grow parsley and cilantro and other things that they normally like to stay in. So.
One year in the greenhouse I stumbled on, I was growing all of our transplants for our cool season, like things like kale and chard and broccoli, transplants in the greenhouse. And then I also had calendula transplants, and we had a lot of aphids. But then all of a sudden, these wasps just loved the calendula, and I didn't even order them. They got in somehow, and they were thriving on the calendula, and they had you should have seen the amount of mummies on these things. But that was kind of remarkable, I thought. Of course, you don't really want a lot of mummies on your kale either. You don't want aphids or mummies. But it was very interesting to see, and it you know, clicked with me. It was like, in the greenhouse, you know, maybe this could be a good strategy for keeping beneficials thriving and saving money, and versus having to reorder every week. Is they do a lot with, sometimes they're called banker plants, where they'll provide habitat for your beneficial insects to keep them around.
I think it's just like anything else. On the front end, it's a pretty big investment to get your populations up, but I know we're ordering less every year and only introducing them on purpose twice a year. Well, the ladybugs twice a year and the lacewings just once, and I feel like, you know, there's definitely more hanging around, and they're definitely staying on our larger farm. They're moving outside, but they're still staying around, so for us, I'm just like you. I don't like measuring stuff. I don't like spraying. And so that is my main, you know, other than crop rotation and just trying to harvest before it gets bad, you know, then.
And it's a lot of experimentation. I don't think I've ever met someone that's never had a pest. I mean, there's always something every year. Yeah. It's just, what's it going to be, and trying to tinker with the system and figure out what works, and talking to people, because to find out good varieties of things to grow, for example, like early maturing broccoli, something that can get a really nice marketable head before the harlequin bugs come in, and before you have to worry about so many imported cabbage worms. And people usually, there's some experienced growers around in our network of organic growers in the region that have really good advice. And like flaming, you've been doing flaming for your, is it the
squash bugs?
The squash bugs, yeah. And that is working, right?
Well, it's my first year that I've tried it, so we'll see how. I'll let you know.
Okay. Because I've never tried flaming for pest management. I'm really kind of scared of our flamer.
It takes a long time, it takes a long time to burn the plant, and you want to really burn the plant to get the eggs on the other side. The reason I'm doing that as opposed to just pulling them up is because, you know, the adults, I'm trying to get the adults and the larvae, the babies too, in addition to the eggs. So.
And the flaming does it kill the crop too, or your trap crop? So you're killing,
So I'm really.
And then do you have to? Are you thinking of replanting?
Yeah, and then and I already have in the back. There's already another squash planting back there, so I don't, you know, I haven't checked to see since I've planted it if there's already squash bugs
on there.
Right. But there weren't when I did it, so I'll certainly be able to tell after I get rid of this planting, which, like I said, I was just kind of waiting for you guys to go.
Right.
And then we'll see what happens to the population.
And trap cropping is one of these management strategies that I think has a lot of potential for organic systems, because it's been documented, at least for cucumber beetles, that it does work. We did a trial a couple summers ago, and there was a distinct preference for the varieties that we were planting in our perimeter trap crop, like the Turk's turban and blue Hubbard squashes. And there's been other extension work on this before too that shows that the beetles have a preference for those plants. The hard part then is, what do you do once they're in the trap? You have to manage them somehow, otherwise they're going to decimate eventually the trap, and then they're just going to move in. So we had that problem, like, okay, well, now what, I could have done a spraying of Pyganic, but you're not going to do that every week without rotation. We have to have other options, so I didn't think that was a great option. But flaming could be it, or there's vacuuming is supposed to really work. But how do we get this? For that kind of thing, it's like we need some technology. We need some people that are good at tinkering to create maybe a piece of equipment that can be adaptable for a small farm, not something that's insanely expensive. But vacuuming also is supposed to work great. It would work great for flea beetles. Just think about that, how that would work. But does anyone have any experience with vacuuming, or do they know of anyone who's making vacuums for small farmers? Besides going out there with your battery-powered Dirt Devil, which I have tried before. It works until the battery dies, huh?
I think that's what I heard being used.
The Dirt
a
Devil?
dust buster.
Dust buster.
A battery-powered dust buster. But it would only work on a small scale, because
right.
You'd be done with that pretty fast.
Yes. And, hand picking, we just have an acre on our little farm, and so it's not that hard for us to hand pick, and we hand pick a lot because I do hate spraying and I don't want to, so I would rather hand pick. But I think that, I was thinking of ideas of, well, we have to think of unconventional ways to get people to, because labor is such an issue for organic growers. So what if we had, on a Saturday or a Sunday, you had a big meal and said bug picking party, whoever picks the most squash bugs wins, and you get a discounted CSA box or something, or I would do that. That's fun. That's my idea of a good time. Hanging out, picking bugs, eating, as long as it's a feast and it's like a fun, sociable atmosphere.
So how about inviting school kids?
Huh?
School kids from school.
Oh yeah, school kids. Yeah, if you have kids, definitely.
They get for 100 potato peppers, they get $1 or something.
Yeah, or you pay kids a nickel or whatever per squash bug.
I don't know, not my kid.
Not your
Ew, Mom, what are you talking about?
The other benefit of hand picking is you're able to observe more of what's going on. Like you would see if you had, and also at the same time you can be pulling weeds and looking for disease symptoms, and so you're out there. But you guys are all out there anyway, and I know, the labor is the biggest part. But
a lot of it's finding just the happy medium of what the crop can handle too, population-wise, and then also, I know I'm still trying to learn the life cycle of the different insects so that I can understand how the population is changing over the course of the season, so that it's not building and over the course of it, like by the time I have my third or fourth squash or cucumber planting, that it just is decimated, before I can harvest from it, which is what happened last year when I kind of had uncontrolled insect pressure. Where it's, before, if you can kind of keep the population down to a manageable level where you can go out and hand pick and do other things or spray every once in a while, and you could still get a harvest, but it's keeping it
and understanding threshold levels, and that I think there needs to be more work on. But I'm thinking, it's coming to mind, remember in that Growing for Market, the article on the broccoli, where they said if the plant had from 6 to 15 leaves on it, then it could withstand up to 50% defoliation without a reduce in yield, which is pretty, I thought that was pretty interesting. So you're dealing with a timing, but also a tolerance and knowing what the level is. And I think that just comes from a lot of just experience. Yeah. And then also tolerance of some damage. I'd like to think that people that want to buy or they're looking for organic products understand a little bit. If you don't have the prettiest looking or the perfect, there's, you know, everybody's different in what they want, what they expect from the market, but I'm not advocating selling poor quality stuff, but you know, if it's got a hole in it, then you can know, you know it's organic. Or how does Jerry Baird market his corn? If it's got a corn earworm in it, it's the corn earworm's free. Comes free with the ear of corn.
Extra protein.
So you mentioned that plants produce antioxidants if they are.
Right, yeah.
So how well established is that?
It's sort of, yeah, it's the data that I've read, it was a little new, but feeding by insects on, Heather, we were talking about this, the glucosinolates, flea beetles and the caterpillars and things, when they feed from on the leaves, they elicit a response by the plant to jack up its production of the glucosinolates, which are supposed to be anti-kind of feeding.
Yeah, they're a defense mechanism by the plant, like the glucosinolates are, but they're also antioxidants, so they're good for us, but they're deterrents to the insects. So they're kind of a stress response if it's hot or if there's drought, or if there's insect feeding, you'll have higher glucosinolate levels in your broccoli and your cabbage and stuff.
So this is why if you go out and eat that kale, well, plus insect pressure plus weather, it's going to be a lot spicier than if you had it in April or earlier on. So I think that's an interesting side of things, because if, you know, maybe there's a line where a little bit of pest damage is actually beneficial, nutrition-wise. It's a possibility, but it's new. There's not a lot, I think, of information out there, and I think that stuff that is out there is on the mustard type family stuff.
There's also each, like cabbage, broccoli, and all that has its different composition of glucosinolates, and I think there's some work where feeding from different bugs will increase one glucosinolate and not another. So
that's really
one particular stress might increase the good glucosinolates without increasing the bitter ones, but that's really still in the research phases right now.
And another kind of fascinating thing about the glucosinolates is, so now you have the specific insect pests like the cabbage worms that are attracted to that that volatile. So they use that to find their host plants, but also the parasitoids of those pests. Like, did I show you the diamondback moth pupa that was black, was parasitized by a broconid wasp? They use the same kind of cues. So there's nature for you. It's a rat race. I'm sure there's tons of stuff I'm not mentioning, leaving out. If you guys have insect pests or anything you want help with IDing, I love getting pictures or specimens, or I can, or send them to Frank too. He's really good at your extension office, but I'll gladly take pictures and specimens. And if you have a bug picking party, you can invite me, but you have to feed me.
Not watermelon jelly.
No. Any other questions?
You're all insect out. What's the difference between an insect and a bug? Because I've heard from the entomology department professors that there's a difference.
Well, okay, so I use the terms interchangeably. Insect is the proper term for the class Insecta, and a bug is a type of an insect, because you have the true bugs, like the squash bugs and the stink bugs and some of the guys that we saw earlier, and then you have
you know, all the other, you have bugs and you have beetles and moths and butterflies, and those are just different orders within the class Insecta.
The bugs, all hemipterans are bugs, right?
Yes, there's hemipterans, right, there's the class of bugs. And within that order of Hemiptera, you have many different families, like the stink bugs are the pentatomids, and there's the phymatids, those are the ambush bugs, those were the beneficials that I showed you guys, and there's tons of different.
Are spiders in the kingdom Insectae?
No, spiders are arthropods, but they're under Acari or Acari, or those are the mites. They're arachnida.
But in the kingdom, like
Acari are the mites.
but like the plant kingdom and the
They're
animal
animals,
kingdom,
yeah.
all are considered the animal kingdom.
Yep.
Huh. I learned something new.
Which is why insecticides are kind of scarier, like, and that brings up a good point usually with the difference between herbicides and insecticides. Insecticides are a little scarier because we're animals and they're targeted towards insects, which are other animals. And we're a lot more different physiologically than plants. So it's something just to keep in mind.